Hey friends, welcome to a special bonus episode. So you may have seen about the Flourish Retreat that I'll be hosting in Kiawah Island, October 15th through the 18th. And you might be wondering, so I don't understand exactly what's going to be going on at this retreat. And so I've already said that Julie Bagwell and Brittany Bruce, we're going to be the three speakers at the retreat. And so I wanted to introduce you to Julie if you haven't met her, because she's been on the podcast twice before. Julie and I have been best friends for 32 years, I think.
A lot.
Yes, a long time. So we're getting older. But Julie has worked in HR. She's the HR manager at her company and has worked in HR for her whole career, basically. So she understands people. She likes to help people understand how they thrive. Because when we understand ourselves better, then I feel like we can step into our purpose a little bit easier. So, Julie, I just want you to share just a little bit, because one of the bonuses that we have that is up until August the 10th is a very valuable bonus, because you can have the DISC assessment. Now, I don't know exactly what the words DISC stand for. You can tell
We'll
us.
talk about that.
Okay, all right. But there's an assessment, and it is it's a very valuable test. And then Julie is a certified coach in this. And so we're going to be going through some of those things. But that's part of the bonuses. We're also going to talk a little bit about what Julie's going to be sharing at the retreat. So, where do you want to start, Julie?
Well, I can just start a little bit about, why do we journey down self-awareness and self-discovery? Carol and I were talking before we started recording. I heard this quote last week, and I just keep thinking about it. And Abe Lincoln was quoted as saying, "If you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 hours sharpening my axe." And I just really thought about that and thought, how many times in different seasons of my life did it feel like maybe I was chopping down this tree with a very dull axe because I have not stopped and sharpened it. And you can take that to mean a lot of different things. Maybe my seasons were changing and I was stuck still doing what I used to do because that's what I'd always done. And I really didn't take time to stop and figure out that things were changing and I was in a transition. It could be that I needed new tools to sharpen myself. And so I think self-awareness and self-discovery just helps us figure out how we're wired. Some things I think we're the way we are from birth, and I think sometimes as we go through our life, we learn different things and we have different things that happen that make us stronger in certain areas than others through life experiences. But, Psalm 139 talks about search me, Lord, at the beginning and the end of that chapter, and he's saying search me. And a lot of times when I think about search me, I'm thinking, well, he's in there digging around looking for sin. I don't like that. But he already knows how he made us. He made us in our mother's womb. He's already ordained our days. And so it's not that he needs to search and find out something, it's that I need to know these things. And so when we partner together and search, and he reveals to me how he's wired me, and he shows me how he's made all these things in my life line up to where I am, and he knows where I'm going. And so being able to feel a little more confident in my decisions because God's kind of showing and revealing these things to me, it's just been very helpful for me as I've grown to the age that I am. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's, when I've talked with other ladies, when you take a step back and start looking at it, it just kind of helps you understand where you've been, kind of where you are now, and then the value of using all that information to figure out where you're going next. And it's not like a quick, oh, here's the next 3 things I've got to do. But once you start looking at that tapestry and how he's woven it together, it's just helpful. And then you're being able to give your best yes, not just a yes to everything. So that's why I've enjoyed the journey of finding out more about how God's wired me. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the different ways that you can find out more about yourself.
Okay, so let's go through the bonus stuff first.
Okay.
Which is the DISC assessment. So tell us what that means and what the DISC DISC. What does that stand for?
Right. So this is a behavioral assessment. So this just talks about how you get up and face the day, how you make decisions, how you do things. But it does it in 4 different categories. And there's not a right, and there's not a wrong, and there's not a better and a best. But it's just, again, kind of how you're wired. And so the D really deals with how you handle problems and challenges. So it's a dominance metric. High dominance, you want to be in control and you want to make decisions. Lower, you would defer to somebody else because those things get stressful for you. The I has to do with how you deal with people and contacts in your life. So this is influencing. Some people have a high battery for energy and like to be around groups of people. Other people find like group environments very draining. Again, not a right or a wrong, but again, it's just kind of your natural bend. The S has to do with steadiness, and that's like pace and consistency. Do you like an environment that's going to be predictable, or do you like things that are going to be different because you get bored easily? And then the C has to do with dealing with like compliance, constraints, procedures. It's a conscientiousness. So somebody working in finance hopefully has a high compliance bend, because you have a lot of rules to follow with money and banking and different things like that. But some people like don't want to be boxed in, and they want to be able to wing it or be pioneering and change things. So again, it doesn't mean you can't do any of those different things. It's just sort of a measure of which ones are going to come more naturally for you and which ones are just going to require a lot of energy. And so once you know that about yourself, like the things that I don't like doing, like I try to give myself extra time for those, and I try to not pack in a lot before or after when I do those things, because I know they're draining for me. And so it's just something, again, that the more aware you are, you can structure your day sometimes better. You can, like I said, you choose yeses that are going to be energizing for you rather than draining, but it also can kind of help you understand, even when you think you're doing a good thing, why it's exhausting. And then you just have to make a choice of, do you want to continue doing that, or do you want to maybe make some changes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important too that even as we understand ourselves better, I think a lot of times we understand our family members better, because like I know my husband, he's like very driven and very black or white, and I'm not that way. And so whenever we have butted heads in the last 41 years, then, I didn't understand why he couldn't understand me. So when we understand ourselves, and we even are exposed to some of these other things, the other ways that people process things, then it helps us have a little more compassion and empathy for those that are in our lives that we have to, deal with, and we want to deal with and live with and work with every day.
Right.
So I think it's really important.
Well, that's one thing I tell people. There's not many people, I think, that wake up and think, man, I'm just going to go get on Carol's nerves today and fill in the blank. And so once we realize they are just coming from a different place, and sometimes if we can just give them a minute to, get there, or, if we like to, for instance, if you're high I, you like to talk and you like to chat. People that are high D just want to get the facts, and if they have time to chat later, then they will. So again, once you realize that everybody's not like you, that they're just coming from a different place, then you can change your wording. Sometimes you can be shorter in conversation. Again, it's just the bottom line is to be effective in communication. The point of communication is they understand what you're trying to say. And so if they tune you out because you've already used 47 words and haven't really said anything yet, as a high D would tend to think, you just know that going in. And so it does give you an appreciation of, they're not trying to get on my nerves. They just are filtering. Their brain works different. So I just need to get in there with what's going to be the most effective. Again, not right, not wrong, just trying to be effective in our communication.
So, yeah, that's really good. So with the bonus, you're also going to take this assessment, and they're going to get a 45-minute one-on-one coaching where you're going to walk them through, just like you did when you explained it, but then you're going to go deeper with, okay, you're a D, so this means this.
Well, we're all the things, but
right.
It just shows you kind of where your energy. Again, it's kind of a measure of energy for these behaviors, and again, usually what happens in the other person's mind, I can't see it, but they're like, start thinking like, oh, that is why this is exhausting for me, or oh, this is why I really enjoy that. And so we just kind of talk about how these things, hit your life where you are, and then maybe put some couple of things in place if you want to start making some adjustments, now that you're a little more aware about like what your sweet spot is to work or volunteer or just in your home.
Yeah, because it helps refine, because I know when I was younger especially, and even as I've gotten older, just trying to figure out where I fit in, what piece of the puzzle am I in this whole part of building God's kingdom, because God has given each one of us gifts. I mean, we know if we belong to Christ, we're one of his children, he has given us at least one gift, and we want to take that gift and we want to use it to the best of our ability. We don't want to be like the wicked servant who took that one gift, that one talent, and buried it and didn't use it. We want to be like the ones that had the 5 and the 2 talents and they doubled it. And so when we do that, we're affecting and we're influencing and hopefully bringing people into the kingdom because we're using those gifts. So all of that just works together when we work in our strengths. So we're also going to be talking a little bit about some of the moments that have changed us in our lives, the hard ones, the surprising ones, and the beautiful ones. So how can she use those as clues for where God may be leading her next?
Yeah, I think about Joseph, and just Old Testament Joseph, not New Testament Joseph. But Old Testament Joseph, we see that he went through so much, and there were a lot of hard things in his life. There was a lot of unfair things in his life. There's a lot of reasons for him to be mad and bitter and want to shake his fist at God. But in the end, he says that what the enemy wanted to use for evil, that God was able to use for good. And it was because he had that tenderness of heart to be able to keep going back to God, that he was able to say that. When we harden our hearts, we do tend to have a hard time seeing that some of these experiences, and there's awful things in the world, could be used for good. But God wants to use all the things in our life and be able to show how, when we give it to him, he can redeem it. And a lot of times, to what we were talking about earlier, it gives us compassion for other people who have gone through those things, and to hopefully be able to share with them that, hey, there's still hope. But a lot of times when we go through those little journeys, we think about these mile markers that we go through. And I think an important question is, what did we start to believe after these things happened? And sometimes we're believing things that just aren't true. Sometimes we're believing what somebody else said about us. Sometimes we're believing what we're telling ourselves in our head. And it's not what God says about us. And so again, back to the analogy of chopping at the tree with a dull axe, sometimes if we can just take a minute to step back and spend a little bit of time sharpening our axe, asking some questions. Where did these things come from in my head? Are these things even true? Then we're able to kind of calibrate maybe the way God sees some of these things in our lives, and how that may not be how we've been viewing them, and then giving him a chance to change perspective and be like Joseph, to be able to say, like, I want to be able to say, God is using all these things for good, but I don't see it yet. And in that honesty, I think God can deal with our hearts once we've softened them a little bit, and then we get his perspective on these things. And then he can kind of help show us, gosh, if Joseph, when he was sold into slavery, if he could have had just fathomed that one day he was going to be the one who was stewarding the food in the literal way to keep not just his family, but all these families, sustained during a famine, he would have said, there's no way that's going to be me. And I think, God has things in store for us that we can't even imagine right now. And it may be through small little things that we're doing. It may not be big, huge things, but God has these plans, and we're able to affect those that we love and the people that are around us. But being able to kind of step back, and that's why getting away to a retreat is so helpful, because a lot of us, we spend time with God, or, have our daily things that we do, but sometimes we need a minute to just get out of doing the laundry, going to work, fixing dinner and all the things that we're responsible for, to have a minute to just exhale and be still and have some focused conversations about what we're doing, what God's called us to do, and how He's already equipped us for those things.
Mm-hmm. So we talk a lot about transition seasons. It could be that you've lost your sense of purpose or direction due to motherhood shifts, career changes, empty nest, spiritual restlessness. How can understanding both your story and your wiring help you navigate those seasons with more confidence and less fear?
Yeah, fear's a big thing. And a lot of times that goes to this control that we want to have.
Yeah.
And again, we're all wired in these different ways. Some of us, control is a really big thing, and sometimes it's not quite as big thing. But being able to recognize, I just think about parenting. If you are like low in dominance, like you don't want to be in charge of everything, parenting can be draining because you are constantly having to make decision after decision after
You're
decision.
the one in charge.
Right. And so again, does that mean you don't become a parent? No, it just means you recognize, man, I don't just suck at this. Like, this is a challenge to how I'm wired. And that's something that I feel like is, as I've learned about myself, is like I've learned to cut myself some slack in areas where I look at other people and think, wow, they do that so well. Why do I struggle with that? And then I realize I'm not wired that way. Does it mean I can't do it? No, I can do it. It's just going to take a little more preparation or a little more hard work or a little more energy, and then I can do these things. Again, if you're low in the I, which is your personal interaction with people, your toddler doesn't care about that. They're going to cling on your leg and they're going to want the attention. So does that mean you don't have toddlers? No, but it just helps you understand why sometimes it may be draining when you're somebody that or follow online. Seems like they've got all the energy in the world for their toddler. They're wired different. And so I think just learning those things about yourself, knowing how to self-care through these seasons where it is a big energy drain where you are, but then also just kind of being aware so that when you do get a chance to choose about homeschooling or a different job or an environment where you work at home or environment where you're around more people or starting a new business, whatever it is, once you know how to set yourself up based on your sweet spots, then hopefully you're gaining a little momentum and aren't just constantly in environments that are just draining for you. Mm-hmm. And so these new transitions and new seasons, again, it just kind of gives you more tools in your toolbox to be able to consider before you just jump into the next thing.
Yeah, which is really good. The more you know yourself, the more you understand yourself, I think the more you can find your way easier. Mm-hmm. It's not all going to be easy. But
no, and God's perspective on these things, because I can think all day long about what I think I'm good at, again, God's wired us these ways, and so He had a plan. We are made in God's image, and so there's something about me that reflects God. There's something about Carol that reflects God in a different way. And our community, our families, the people that we're around need those things, mm-hmm. or we would have been born 40 years ago or 40 years from now. But God saw fit that we're put where we are today to be able to show this part of Him through our personality, through our behaviors, through our characteristics, so that we can be awesome. No, we are made to honor God. We are made to glorify God. Isaiah 43 tells us that. And so we want to be able to, the best we can, steward the things that He's given us so that we do honor Him. And hopefully other people will smell that fragrance of Jesus, as they say, be able to shine a little bit of a light where somebody's curious about that, and then we're able to point others to Him, whether that is through our job, whether it is through our home, whether it is through where we serve in our community or volunteer. Those are the things that is helpful, I think, to know.
Yeah, I think that's good. So another question that I have, that this would have been like, if I was on the other end listening to this would have been high on my priority list, is that, I'm feeling a tug to come, but I'm really scared. I'm really nervous. And one thing that Julie and Frida, if you've heard me talk about her before, is another friend. They have really encouraged me to step outside of my comfort zone and have helped me to understand that if I step outside of that comfort zone, do things that seem hard, then really I'm blessed because I do step out of that. So what would you say? Because I know you've talked me into a lot of things over the years, going to a lot of conferences, which truly were a blessing. So what would you say to that woman that is nervous about coming?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. The smart aleck me says, is your life perfect? Are you where you want to be? Because if you keep doing the same things that you've always been doing, you're probably going to be in the same place a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever. So we've got to make changes on this trajectory that we say we want our life to go to. We'll say, I want to be healthier, I want to be more spiritual, I want to be more in touch with the Lord or whatever, but are we making those small decisions that are going to change that trajectory, or are we just going to still keep doing the same thing? The definition of insanity is thinking that we're going to have a different result when we keep doing the same thing. So maybe is this a time to do something different and, go take a little bit of time to look at these things and ask the Lord where you are, what he's got in store for you, learn a little bit about yourself. So that would be one thing is, do you want to invest in yourself and take the time to do that so that maybe a year from now you can look back and think, man, I'm so glad a year ago me took the time to see how I'm wired, to see what God's calling me to do so that things are different now. The other thing that I would say, it's a little less sarcastic, is just, to pray about it. Like, God has a plan. And maybe you're thinking, I don't know somebody who would go on this retreat with me. You can come solo if you want to. And then if you want to get your best friend and bully him into it, like I have done to my friend Carol at times, maybe that's what you do too.
Yeah.
But pray about it first. Pray, like, is this the right thing for me? And then ask a couple friends if they'll do it with you. And, don't make assumptions of like, well, they're so busy in the fall or, whatever. Let's don't make decisions for people that aren't ours to make. But extend the invitation. See if they're curious about it as well.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. And you didn't force me to do anything. You encouraged me strongly. And I listened. And finally, what do you hope each woman leaves with after this weekend together?
I do. I pray that people, individually, are a little more aware, not just of themselves, but of how much God loves us. He has already made his mind up about each one of us. We don't have to do any more to get his approval. And sometimes I think we get really caught up in the doing of life. What am I supposed to do next? And he cares about us being. He cares about us being the person he called us to be, the person that he knit together in my mother's womb to be where I am in this life. He cares about our relationship with him more than anything else. And when we become more confident in that relationship, when we are more confident that he is a good God and he has good plans for me, then we are able to move into this life that he's called us for. And we know we're not so fearful of like, if I don't make this decision, everything's going to go wrong. And we get caught up with that. And all he cares about is our relationship with him. He is not going to let us miss what he's called us to do. If we get off track one way or another, he's going to scoot us back on track. And maybe we learned a lesson along the way that we can share with other people. So it's just that assurance that he knows us, he cares about us, that we are worthy of his attention. Sometimes the world doesn't show us that and doesn't share that with us, that he's there to help us. And that we are all lovable because he is already head over heels in love with each one of us. And sometimes we just need that reminder.
Yeah, that is so good. Well, thank you, Julie, for sharing that. And I hope that answers some questions that you might be having. I'm also going to be interviewing Brittany, and she's going to share what she's going to be talking about at the retreat. And then I'll have a few little episodes where I'll go through that. So we want to make you feel comfortable about attending this retreat. But one of the main things that my heart wants is to, first of all, encourage you in whatever God is asking you to do, no matter if that's just being a better wife and mother or stepping into a purpose and calling that he has for you. But I also want this to build a community, because if you're lonely, if you don't have a friend that you can ask to bring, we want to be your friends. And we want to love on you and we want to serve you. And that is what this retreat is about. It's not, yes, we're going to have fun. We're going to have a lot of great time. We're going to have some downtime and things like that. But the main thing is we're going to all stay in one big, beautiful house together, and we are going to build a community of women who are like-minded, who want to serve Jesus, who want to love their families, and want to hear, well done, when they finally get to meet Jesus face to face one day. So if you want to know more, again, it's October 15th through the 18th on Kiawah Island, which is just outside of Charleston, South Carolina. And you can go to carolroper.org/flourish for the Flourish Retreat to sign up, find out all the information. We've got a lot of information. And if you have any questions, there's also a link. You can just ask me those questions and I'll be more than happy to answer. So we would love to see you there. And Julie, thank you again.
I have enjoyed it. I look forward to meeting you guys.